MBI.com. This is John's report is for the 24th. And well, I thought I'd just go ahead and start with 50K chart here. And you can see how clean the reading gets. So what we always look for is that uh, green dipping below red, red obviously having, created a nice little swoop down, sort of like it did back over here before the last rally. And that orange dipping below the green. And you follow that until it pops back over. And at that point, you expect the red to be rising and take over the remainder of the trade. Perfect for that. So, same situation took place here. We ended up with the green dip. Then there it is. The orange came across, but then it popped back up. So we look for that crossover point where it, breaks down. And in this case, we still ended up having the red rising. So it was all good. And then boom, we get this an interesting dip. Orange dips below the green, but immediately reverses, corresponding with what? DOC spread. And that's why the pink bar changed. And boom, then you end up with the dip going back over and starting over again. So same situation. Now you can wait a little bit for that crossover here. Began a little bit later from the MBI reading and that, but likewise with the turnaround situation, we get the dip going forward. Now that's exactly what you see in the. Let me give you the other 5K. So what we saw from that view in my adjusted paint bar scenario is where as you end up with that decay run, we end up getting to a point where we dip below these oversold areas, and it's what these violet colored represent from within the broader short reading. And then you get your turnaround potentials, but you've got to have a reasonable setup within your steel in order for those to begin to take place. But they become noticing points, and then what you're looking for literally is just that turnaround of the DOC to start breaking back up and maintaining a trend. And there could be short-lived ones like this little poke that was right here, but you're always going to see where it ends. It becomes pretty clear where you get that MBI weight spike at that particular point. You're going back down to lower, and so whether it's 5K, 50K is just fewer bars versus more bars. The ranges are just going to be slightly different, but then again, your stops relative to that. So it all becomes proportional. You just end up on a 5K chart with, 10 times potentially as many trades as you would from the broader 50K. So that's the broader difference, which is these moves are very significant because, you get your open from there. 71.71, and then coming down before we get our turnaround, you'd be out at the 23% coming back up, so 71.02. So that's 69 points, reasonable. If we look back at the 5K, that was the original paint bar here. This is just Deocon Paint 2. You can see the shift to the red and paint bar coloring staying all the way down there. Just a little slower on the turnaround. And that's a trade-off that I still keep battling with. When do you want to be in too soon versus not soon enough? It's always difficulty, but none of this is unexpected within where we're at. We're still at the peaks. You're still bouncing around between the 76 and 100%. None of that's a crisis. Yes, we started with a DOC spread, a little bit of weakness within that. We already could see that was coming down with a little bit of the breakdown here with the MBI Magenta, but you're still above 33. As long as that holds up, nothing to worry about. But it is one of those as long as, and that can shift. And particularly, the time is running out for Trump. He's got his War Powers Act coming up in 10 days or so. He's extended the ceasefire. Doesn't look like he's willing to go any extra mile, but you still don't have the Strait of Hormuz, the blockade causing them some problems. But as I've said way back a couple weeks ago, from Iran's point of view, they're just waiting out the clock because they know that the U.S. can't continue and won't. But from that standpoint, the attacks on these shipping still continuing within the Strait of Hormuz, from tankers to cargo ships, making people nervous. So oil back up. Still within the same range, not too dramatic, but needless to say, it's still not healthy. Eurozone very exciting because they've now given the Ukrainians their 90 billion. Well, it's going to start to give it to them probably at the beginning of next month or whatever. But the hurdles have been cleared. They ousted Orban, and Ram magically got their pipeline going back again. Russians saw through it and basically said, "Yeah, we're not going to put oil into that one anymore, and no more natural gas running through there." And interestingly enough, though, the numbers that Russia is making from a net trade surplus, they're number three in the world now. So that's only going to get better with the prices of oil coming into the next quarter. They may surpass Germany at that particular point, which crazy is that? From a gold standpoint, still waiting. Still waiting, just can't seem to get any excitement yet because once you start to see the numbers for CPI coming out, the interesting one is, how long can they hide the drain on supplies? And we already see in Europe that they're already starting to panic on that one because they're not going to have enough jet fuel, and so you're going to see flights canceled, restrictions, blah 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 blah. That's going to start to build. So, but that's going to happen in the EU first. So again, from a Trump strategy standpoint, it's a beautiful way to get back at your enemy without actually, who's your friend, without actually anyone, calling it that. But that's effectively what it is. And the Iranian Treasury announced that yes, they got their money. So yeah, that's where your Bitcoin is coming from right there. So all in all, that works pretty much in nobody's favor. It's just inflation's coming. Be ready for it. The market is discounting the devaluation in the dollar already, so that's why we're still up at these levels. I know it's a little counterintuitive, but the first signs you get of actual economic slowdown or recession, well, that's going to be a different story. And then you're going to start filling all these areas back in because then it becomes, well, when does that stop? That becomes problematic. So that's what we're watching for, and we'll just keep doing it. The indicator is very clear on it, so it doesn't matter whether we're at 5K level or 50K level. Uh, we're going to continue to see it and follow it along. So, as always, anything relevant, I will put it on the team chat. Have a good one. Trade well.